Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to look at the last pre-constructed deck from the Darksteel set, which is Transference, which is a mono blue deck. So let's look at the deck list here. So we have 30 creatures, which is huge. We have 4 artifacts, 2 instants, 1 sorcery, and 23 land. We have a mana curve off to the side there. Let's start looking at all these creatures. So the big theme of this deck is the Arcbound creatures. So it's a set of artifact creatures that all have this ability called modular, which means so it's modular X, so whatever number. So it means when they come into play, they come in with that many counters on them, and when they die, you can put its counters onto another artifact creature. So pretty fun, honestly. It means that even that they can load each other up. They end up sort of like dying and combining. It's pretty cool. So we're going to kind of rip through these as quickly as possible because they're all basically the same. They all have modular and just other sort of keyword abilities. So Arcbound Bruiser is just modular 3 for 5. It's fine. It's a 3/3 for 5 mana. Yep, perfectly fine. The fact it can move its counters around, perfectly fine. 2 Arcbound Crushers, so modular 1 has trample. Whenever another artifact comes to play, it gets another counter, so super good. That'd be one of the main, one of the really core good cards of the deck to sort of get going. Arcbound Fiend is modular 3, has Fear for 6. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can move a counter from a creature onto Arcbound Fiend, so it can be opponent's creatures. It can kind of like pre-modular things, I suppose. Yeah, Arcbound Fiend, pretty good, pretty good. One of the rares in the deck is Arcbound Reclaimer, so it's 4 mana for modular 2. You can take a counter off it to get an artifact from your graveyard back on top of your library. So this is potentially very good. When your modular creature dies, it puts its counter on the Reclaimer. You immediately use one of those counters to get that modular creature back on top of your deck. So you go and draw it next turn, play it again. Yeah, super, super good. Then a bunch more kind of like the more basic modular creatures here. So Arcbound Hybrid is just modular 2 with haste for 4. Arcbound Lancer is modular 4 with first strike for 7. Arcbound Stinger is modular 1 with flying for 2, and Arcbound Worker is just modular 1 for 1. These are all perfectly good. This is what I quite like. Even the Arcbound Worker, even as a 1-drop, even late game, it does something because even if it chump blocks, you're still getting to move a counter onto something. So yeah, I really like these Arcbound creatures. I think they're great. And then we just have a few more artifact creatures. These are just kind of here, I feel like, just to fill space. I feel like, if you got this deck and you were looking to upgrade it, you would just take these out and just put in more copies of the modular creatures. But anyway, so 2 Cobalt Golem, it's just 4 mana for a 2/3. You can pay 1 colorless and ability to give it flying till end turn. It's fine, I guess. Dross Golem is kind of okay. So it's 3/1 for 4. Whenever it or another artifact creature dies, you can untap an artifact. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's many cards in this deck that have sort of tap abilities, but it means you can, you say if you attack with stuff and some of your attacking creatures die, not only are you moving the modular the counters around, but then you get to untap them, so then they're ready to block on the next turn, maybe. I don't know. Single Juggernaut, the classic Juggernaut, got reprinted in Darksteel. It's 4 mana for a 5/3. Attacks every turn if able, and it can't be blocked by walls. Yeah, I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's okay. It's nice to see kind of like this classic card get reprinted in the new frame and stuff. But I've never been wowed by Juggernaut. I really don't understand why it doesn't have trample. It feels like it should definitely have trample, but anyway. 2 Rust Elemental, so it's 4 mana for a 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice an artifact other than Rust Elemental. If you can't, so it's not even it is mandatory. You have to do it. It's not like you can choose not to. It's like if you can't tap Rust Elemental, you lose 4 life. So Rust Elemental is still, in my opinion, it is a bad card. In this deck, I think it's a little better just because you don't mind the modular creatures dying, because I don't know, let's say you do Rust Elemental turn 4, you've got some modular creatures out, you sacrifice one of them, you put, say, maybe 2, maybe even 3 counts on Rust Elemental, suddenly you got a 7/7 in the air. So it's still a bad card, but slightly better in this deck, I think, just purely because of the Arcbound creatures. Just a few more random Random artifact creatures. So a single spin crusher. This guy, I mean, well, I think we can all, I think we all know what he looks like. So he's 2 mana for a 0/2. It's such a weird card as well. 0/2. Whenever it blocks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you can remove a +1/+1 counter from it to make it unblockable. So this is actually, even though it's like that art is ridiculous, this is actually like a fairly decent target for the modular creatures to put +1/+1 counters on him, because you load him up, make him really, make his power really high, take a counter off him, swing with it, unblockable. Yeah. But I mean, that art is is so ridiculous. Anyway, single Spire Golem. It's just one of the affinity golems. So 6 mana for 2/4, but it has affinity for islands. So it costs 1 less to play for every island you control. So potentially get this turn 3, and a 2/4 flyer on turn 3 is pretty good, I think. Yeah, Spire Golem's alright. And then a single Voltaic Construct, 4 mana for a 2/2. Pay 2, untap target artifact creature. Again, like that's a really good ability, I think, just to have it. So you don't have a lot of stuff in here that has like maybe tap abilities, but this can obviously, you can untap stuff after it's attacked or whatever. I think Voltaic Construct is pretty good. And then some random blue creatures. So we have 3 Neuroc Familiars. So this is 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer. When it comes into play, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it into your graveyard. So many of the cards in the deck are artifacts. So this is almost usually, most of the time, just 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer, draw a card, which is I think that's perfectly fine. We have a single Neuroc Transmuter. I don't understand what this is doing in here, if I'm honest. So 3 mana for a 2/2 human wizard. 1 blue, target creature becomes an artifact, in addition to its other types till end of turn. Or until end of turn, target artifact creature becomes blue and isn't an artifact. It's a fun card. I'm sure there is like an elaborate combo out there somewhere with this guy. I don't know what he's doing in this deck. Like, it doesn't really feel like he does anything special. Or like he has any particular synergy, but maybe I'm missing something. Please, if something has jumped out at you, please put it in the comments below so I can understand the purpose of Neuroc Transmuter in this deck. And 2 Vidalcan Engineers, 2 mana for a 1/1. Tap gives you 2 mana of any one color. Spend that mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. That's pretty good. Always felt weird when blue gets like a kind of like a mana dork, because you normally associate that with green, but I don't mind it when it's mana that you have to use for specific things. I think that works for blue personally. But this guy was great. I mean, I definitely had a few of these like in an affinity deck I had at the time. So moving on, so we've got some interesting cards here to finish off. So 2 Echoing Truth. So there's a whole cycle of these echoing spells, which basically you target something and the spell affects that and everything that has the same name of it. Echoing Truth, I think, is by far the best one. Because it's 2 mana instant, return a non-land permanent, and all permanents with the same name as that permanent to owner's hand. So if your opponent's just like created a load of tokens, just 2 mana, get rid of all of them. It's amazing. The thing is, even if this only returns one thing, 2 mana to bounce a non-land permanent is perfectly fine. This never feels overcosted. And when it hits multiple things, this feels incredibly undercosted. It's Echoing Truth is super good. A single Reshape. This is the other rare of the deck. So 2 blue and X. As additional cost to play Reshape, sacrifice an artifact, which you don't mind doing at all because you've got a load of modular creatures. Search your library for an artifact card with converted mana X or less and put it into play, then shuffle your library. I think this is fine. This is a good way to tutor up like the maybe only 1 copies you've got of like some of the other modular creatures like the Crusher or the Arcbound Fiend or the Arcbound Reclaimer, like one of those. So this is an okay tutor, I think. And then we get to like what I feel is like the real this should be the rare, honestly, Skull Clamp. So this is like one of the most broken pieces of equipment ever. So it's only 1 mana to cast, 1 mana to equip. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. So yeah, that's really strong. Because you just put this on one of the modular creatures. You can put this on a turn play could be, you go Arcbound Worker, like the little one, and then, I don't know, next turn, I don't know, you do this and the Skull Clamp and equip it, and like you're suddenly drawn 2 cards and you get to move counters around. Skull Clamp is like crazy good. And I have no idea how I managed to get through like playtesting, because it is obviously so good. Like, this could be like just +1/+0, or even not even a power toughness boost, and it could just be like, when a crypt creature dies, you draw a card. Even then, I think it would be pretty good. The fact it exists as it currently is insane. So the inclusion of Skull Clamp, like, even if not we're counting the Arcbound creatures, Skull Clamp definitely makes this deck, like, out of all the Darksteel ones, this would have definitely been the most powerful. It definitely would have been the most sought after, I think. And then just to finish off, we just have a Dragon Blood. This gives +1/+1 counters. Fine, like, add to your modular creatures. Golem's Eye. This is kind of expensive and a bit bad in my opinion, but it's kind of like he attempts to make a fixed Soul Ring. So yeah, 4 mana just taps to give you 2, and then 2 Seat the Synod for artifact lands. So what could have been? So overall, I think the deck is very good. There are some of the artifact cards in here are kind of like like the Cobalt Golem and stuff like that, stuff that has like no real synergy. But that's easy stuff that you could phase out. So what I actually thought would have been fun in this deck is to add red to it, because red obviously has a lot of ways to sacrifice artifacts, which you don't mind doing in modular creatures. So I thought Shrapnel Blast, it's a good way. You sacrifice an artifact, does 5 damage, and then you get to move counters around. Forge Armor and Dismantle, I think, would have been really interesting to have in here. So Forge Armor, 5 mana instant, you sacrifice an artifact, and then you put X +1/+1 counters on another creature, where X is the sacrificed artifact's mana value. So you could like double up on your counters, because you get the counters from Forge Armor's effect, and then you get the counters from Modular as well. And the same with Dismantle. Destroy an artifact. If it had counters on it, put that many +1/+1 counters or charge counters on an artifact you control. Again, this is a way of like doubling up on +1/+1 counters. So I just think it would have been interesting to add a splash of red into this deck, just for like these 3 cards. I think that would have been really interesting. Other potential artifacts. Arcbound Slith is weirdly the only Arcbound creature apart from Arcbound Ravager. I appreciate Arcbound Ravager as a thing. But let's keep this. It's already got 2 Skull Clamps. We don't need to add Arcbound Ravager in it to make it incredibly insane. So Arcbound Slith is it has like the Slith ability, where like if it deals damage to someone, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So just another Arcbound creature you could have in here. Dead Iron Sledge is an equipment that whenever the equipped creature, I think, is blocks or is blocked, like a genius, I've covered it up, but basically whatever it's blocking or blocked by dies, and so does it. So if your creature dies, whatever, move the counters around. Power Conduit is an artifact that lets you move charge or +1/+1 counters around between your things. Just again, seems kind of weird this wasn't in here. And Machinate, Machinate, I think that's how you pronounce it. Which is basically, it's not quite scry, is it? But you dig equal to the number of artifacts you have, and you get 1 card, and you've got a lot of artifacts in the day. But I think definitely adding red would have made this really strong. I mean, as it is, it's definitely the strongest out of all the Darksteel decks, like by I think quite a big margin. Because I think compared to this one, the other 3 are really unfocused in what they're doing. Like the Master Blaster was like this kind of red mid-range, I guess, and the black one was kind of like Black Weenie with a sort of a discard sub-theme, but sort of not really. And then the green-white one was kind of just a big shrug and just like, tokens, I guess. But Transference is super good. So it feels really good to end out the looking at Darksteel with this one. But what did you think of the deck after looking at it? Did you have this deck and did you play it? Did you make any changes to it? Did you add red into it? I really like to know. So stick a comment below. I really like to hear. But we are now done looking at the Darksteel decks. So in the next video, we're going to start looking at Fifth Dawn, which is the last set in the Mirrodin block. That's going to be interesting. So until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a great day.